Hi, everyone, and welcome back. This week, I want to talk about something that has come up quite a few times with sessions that I've done in the last few days, but also in the people that I know locally. And that is are we in the location that we actually are meant to be in? Now, this energy that they want to talk about was called bloom where you're planted, but I had to go into it kind of from the back way because not everybody feels like they are where they are meant to be. And I feel like many people are now getting the call to relocate and to be in a different place. Now, what I would say, and this is how it felt to me when I went into it, is that when we came here, our DNA has this energetic pull for us to align with your nodal grid point or your axis or your planetary gate location. And why is because you're here to work with those specific ley lines. And if wherever you are in the world, if there's this itch that feels like I know something's calling me over in this town, this city, this country, it's like it feels like it's getting like the volume's getting turned up, so you will start to feel it even more intense and it feels more uncomfortable to be where you currently are. And the reason is because it feels like there's these magnetic, like you carry a magnet and that grid point is carrying a magnet, and it's like this magnets want to draw to each other. They want to be together. They have a language that needs to be communicated. And so it starts in your field, like these kind of knowings or these synchronicities that come through, or you start to, most of the time it feels like crave nature and crave being outside in nature. That's usually when you start to attune to nature herself. And then you start to realize like, oh, wait a minute. I love nature and this feels great, but this isn't my anchor point. And if you've listened to my story, you know, I started connecting over on the cliffs in San Diego, and that wasn't where I was supposed to be long term. So I was able to work with the land for a year until I got the very clear indication this is not your anchor point. And I had to stop going. And I've talked about that. And it was a period of not knowing what was next for, I think, maybe a year, 6 months to a year. I didn't know what was next for us. And what happened is that I was pulling back my energy from where I had grounded in to get reattuned to where I was actually meant to ground. So what I want to say is that with the frequencies rising actually in the earth, we too are tuning into the subtleties of that pull. So I want to say this. If this is you and I'm speaking to you, you know, I want you to start being open to the idea, like start putting out feelers into this space of, am I being called to move to the mountains? Am I being called to move to the other side of the country? Am I being called to move to the middle part of the state? Am I being called to move to a completely different state? Like all of those things, I want you to just start to play, because it literally is energy. All we have to do is say we hear it. Like that's how it works. Once you acknowledge that I got that hit, I want to explore it now. Now that can be like Googling to find out like how much is it to live there, and like what neighborhood would I like to be in, or whatever. You start to create like a network of energy moving you towards that magnetic pole, which is already there, right? Like it's the base of it already exists. It's just that we need to acknowledge that we hear it and that we are ready to move and flow. Because when we try to force something or I'm trying to think of like when we moved to California, it was because Richard got a job out here. And then also my family lives here. And at the time I thought we were starting a family. So it all flowed for us to move to the West Coast. But then we moved into, this is our third house here. So we moved around San Diego to feel what felt right. The first one, we were only there 2 years. The second one, 5 years. And now here we've been here a year. And this is the area that I feel the most grounded in. But it took me and my frequency time to align to this final anchor grid point that I was meant for. I wasn't there. I wasn't ready to receive her yet either. So what I would say is, like, let's say you move to a certain town because you feel that call, let things align and let them come naturally to what your frequency is calling in that town, but understanding that it may alter slightly. Like for me, as my frequency went up, definitely it altered. Like we would never have moved to San Diego to move out up into the mountains. Like that wasn't a thing when we moved out here. So depending on where you are in your journey, you'll need the support of different things. Like maybe you still need a lot of society around you. Maybe you still need like, I don't know, like restaurants and all the things that are in cities. Or maybe you're like, okay, I want conveniences, but my goal is to connect with myself. And what that feels like is that the more that you understand that longing is coming and that like deep desire to find that peace and space inside, you will pull in. Now, it won't matter where you live in that case, because you're going to pull in your own experience, and you may be called to move to a certain land or a certain part of the country. But when we go through our like internal structure, basically nature is saying, I'm here for you for this. So even if you're surrounded by people, you still can find those moments of connecting with the land. And basically, I feel like every time I try to connect to like, why is this happening? Like, why is it like, do we need to move like within the next year? Do we need like, what's the timeline? I don't get a timeline because I feel like each person is in their own timeline. If, for example, you feel like you're being called to move or to relocate, your timeline starts with your grid point as you introduce your energy to it. So it's not like you guys are on the same timeline as me and I'm not on the same timeline as the next person, because it's an individual experience, right? Like, and so is there a time like urgency? Only as fast as you feel it. That's what I would say. If you are getting the nudges and you feel like, I've outgrown where I'm at, I'm ready for the next thing, that's your soul trying to give you those hints. Like, yes, you're ready. Are you listening? And that's what I'm saying. All you have to do is start putting the energy out and let the synchronicities come to you, because that is going to be the guide to show you it's time. I think in the story of us moving out to this land, we were looking even further out in a higher mountain, and we put out energy there and got absolutely zero response. We even put out an offer on a property. We got no response to that offer. It was nothing. There was no energy return. So what happened is I was in a ceremony, and then I got the knowing that we were looking in the wrong place for the wrong thing. And within a day, the moment that sunk into me and I let go of this particular town that we had only been looking in, literally the next day is when this property was able to come in, because I had already not just me, Richard had put up these kind of feelers out in this particular town because it is super remote. And the truth is, we didn't need to go that remote. but we didn't know that, and it was like letting go of that like idea to find the middle ground. Like we still are in a small town, but it has like grocery stores, for example. And so you may not know what your point is, but ultimately we are here to work with a ley line. And I'm going to do another episode about this in the future, because in my sphere recently, it's come up on why I'm here in this particular part of the world, in this particular spot. And I think it's important because the more that we can tune into what like longitude, latitude you actually are on, you can start to understand and kind of commune with that energy. So basically, we are just like we carry a GPS honing device that we're trying to connect with that particular thing that we agreed to go to. Our energy agreed that we would be in that time space for this ascension. And I just want to reiterate that there is no... I've said this, if you go back to the episode that I did called the 144,000 activation, it's not going to happen in your timeline until you are ready to receive it, if that makes sense. Like, I believe that there are many timelines happening all simultaneously, and depending on where your vibration is, that's where you're going to feel the shift. Like, I believe that this land that I'm in already is in fifth dimension. I am just training to get there. So recently I had a session with Zanita, which is the author of the book that I told you guys about, the Angelic Pearls 144. And she said that when I'm in my own land, I'm in one timeline. And when I go to the grocery store, it's literally going back to third dimension in another timeline. So we're like, and I've talked about this too, where it's like this ever evolving wave. And you can feel like I'm totally peaceful in my own space. And then I go to the grocery store and some random person's having something going on and you oversee it and you're like, wow, I can't believe that even still exists. But the truth is because you've left your sphere or your bubble, you are now experiencing reality or third dimensional reality. And the other day in our property, I told you guys it goes like down into this kind of chalice, but on the rim of us, I can see other properties and other houses. And I was talking to my friend and I said, I feel like I'm in fifth dimension with a view of third, because it's very close. Like I can see the people, and the like that particular weekend, someone was having a party at their pool, and you know, they were loud and like whatever, having a party. And I was like, I think that's also perfect, because I need to know what's happening around, but I don't need to be a part of it. So the more that you hone into your exact location, the more that you're going to understand that this is your it's your drop-in point. So what it feels like, okay, after that, those magnetic kind of plates pull together and they're connected, it feels like this big, deep, like, and the roots just drop in. Now, it feels like at that point, then all of the senses are able to come online, because it's like, we're not here doing this alone. We get our clairs or our gifts from, yes, our DNA, but also nature. Because once you connect into that point that you're meant to be in, it's like, how would I describe it? Like, okay, I was already getting my gifts turned on before I moved to this land. But when I got to this land, it was like and then it's just a being. It's not like I'm striving anymore. It's not like I need to take classes to learn things. It's just like I got this like boost of me and like a safety net around me that feels like no matter how out there I go, I'm supported. And if I'm not, then by people, then those people aren't even allowed in the sphere. And it weirdly, I invite people to come, especially friends, like old friends. And without fails, there's a particular person that no matter how often we plan for her to come out, something comes up. Literally, like the last one was like a couple weekends ago, and my mom had COVID. So I'm like, are you serious? Like, we've tried this 4 times, and she's a lovely spirit, but for some reason, it's not time. So that's what I mean. When you find that point, you start building up your own like it looks like a bubble around you, and then it only allows in those people that are able to be at that same frequency with you. So what I want to just remind you guys of is that this whole dance is a flow. There is not, like, I know the mind wants to get in there and figure it out and, find the cute place, but let me just say, this house, we would never have ever bought in this house. Like, it wasn't even something we were looking to buy. And it came. And then it felt like when we got to this land, it was of course this is it. But you see how our minds couldn't even, I would say, dream to this reality because it wasn't our reality yet. So the more that we can be in tune with the magic that can unfold, it's going to bring you to your point. You just have to be ready to do the work. Like, okay, I'm going to leap. I'm going to put myself in, and I'm going to see what comes of it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know something is calling me. Another thing that's come up this week with one of the sessions that I've done is this feeling of needing to find your pace within nature. So essentially, if we haven't started communicating with her, it's like you're kind of like above here. This is you on the planet, and Earth is here, and you're just like moving around doing your thing, but you're not connected yet. And essentially, until you make that handshake or that connection with land, it doesn't have to be your land. It just is starting that permeability of your body to literally the ground. It's like all of a sudden, all of the things that that we hope for our journey, that we feel for our journey, that we are like striving for in our journey, you realize they can actually come to you, and they do come to you because you're ready. You're not like up in the mind state anymore, like thinking like, why is this not coming? Why am I not feeling my gifts yet? Or how long is this journey going to take? Or, the things the mind gets involved with is it really keeps us from feeling. And I mean, look, nature's everywhere, but think about this. How much time do you take to be there? To like feel your pulse again. And what they showed too is that the reason it is so important is that when you find that land that you're ready to commune with, it's this neutrality that helps you to go in. It's not like, there's no way that we can go in when we have like this computer in front of us, these lights, these microphones. Like, no. You have to find this peace and silence to find that space to know like what your next octave is, or where your next wink is coming from, or the next thread to follow. When I sit here, I don't come to this camera prepared. I don't have notes. I just know an idea that wants to come through. And then I follow those threads with the intention of it hitting you guys. But it's also something that I obviously came through me, so I also need to know it too, right? But I have to let go of my mind in order to feel it. So I think that's what they're wanting you guys to understand, is that right now, yes, there is this momentum. I would call it a momentum of connecting us to those grid points. And I think that it's time, and by that, I just mean it's time for us to start going deeper into our own journeys. And I would never say that to someone that isn't watching this, obviously, because not everybody's on that journey. But if you're watching this to this point, you are. And I'm talking to you. It is your like birthright to find this in yourself and to accept it in yourself. And you have to be the one that makes that free will choice that you're ready. So with this, I just want to say, like, all of my heart is holding space for you to do that, because we each have to make our own leaps. I can't leap for you guys, and no one can leap for me. And it's like I always say, it's always the hardest thing. It's never easy. It's never comfortable. But once you do it, you're like, oh, yes, I knew it. I knew this is what was next for me. So please don't feel like there is a timeline, because you're on your own timeline. But there is energy that's supporting that timeline growth, that kind of jump to the next octave, or the collapse of the one you're in and moving into the next like expansion of you. And to me, that's a beautiful gift. Obviously, no time in history that I've been a part of has there been so much support to help us, and I feel it like so deeply that we just have to breathe it in with every fiber that we have and roll and flow with it. So I hope this is helpful for those that actually need this advice. And I feel like there's a nugget in there for everyone, even myself. And I'll see you guys next week.